It's going live. Okay.
Facebook भी आ गया, कारण famous Facebook now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's coming.
It's coming on Facebook.
Yeah. Namaste and welcome everybody to Asha Australia's one of our series of the Health Talks. We are very fortunate and very happy to have Dr. Deepa Vishwanathan today, who is going to talk about something very important. Our eyes are the gateway to the world and very important part of our life, our body, and for everything. So we need to take care of our eyes. We will I'll just leave it for Dr. Deepa to tell whatever she feels is the right for us so that we are well informed and we can take care of our eyes. Asha Australia Foundation is always taking care of our seniors. We have a lot of online programs, and the good news is we have started our senior social hubs at West Ryde, Crow's Nest, and next Saturday we are having in Wentworthville in the Wentworth Community Center from 12 to 4 p.m. Please come along. Please book your place as the places are very limited due to the COVID safe. I will request Dr. Sundar to introduce Dr. Deepa, please. Dr. Sundar.
Namaskar, namaste. Welcome, ASHA members. I'm Dr. Sundar from ASHA Foundation. We welcome Dr. Deepa Vishwanathan. You all know Dr. Vishwanathan, the best cardiologist we know, who has given talk for ASHA Foundation on 2 occasions. In the meantime, we'll talk about Deepa, trained in India, in the Shankaran Australia, obtained a fellowship in Glasgow, then did a fellowship and PhD in Sydney, and worked in Hunter, Westmead, and different hospitals. She specialized in corneal transplants, also on diabetes and glaucoma. Today, you're going to hear about what she could say about what is for glaucoma, what is diabetes, what we know. You hear from Dr. Deepa Vishwanathan. Thank you, Dr. Deepa. Off you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijender. Thank you, Dr. Sundar. And thank you all of you for this opportunity. So I'm Deepa. I'll be talking on 2 very important eye problems. One is glaucoma and the other one is diabetes. I'll make it very simple and easy for you to understand. If you have any questions, do ask me at the end. So I'll start off with a bit about the eye, in the sense a bit about the structure of the eye so that you understand as I talk along. The eyes are, as Vijender said, they are the windows to the soul. So it's considered to be very similar to the camera. So if you look at our eyes, there is this front window of the eye, which is called the cornea, which is like a clear structure. So the light passes through the cornea, and there is this opening here, which is called the pupil, which is again like the diaphragm of a camera. The light then goes on to this clear lens, which focuses the light onto the back of the eye. And there is this layer here that I'm showing you that is called the retina. That is a special layer of neurons, and that collects all the information and passes it on to the nerve, which is the optic nerve. So this nerve then transmits all these signals to the back of our head, to the brain, and then that is how we see. So it's a very complex mechanism. So let us look at these 2 diseases and how they relate to the eye structure and how they develop. So coming to the first one, which is glaucoma. So what is glaucoma? Glaucoma is the name given to a group of diseases where the vision is lost due to optic nerve damage. So as you all saw earlier, there is this optic nerve which transmits all the signals to the back of the eye. So this optic nerve is the main connecting pathway between the front of the eye and the brain. So in glaucoma, there is increase in fluid pressure within the eye.
Volume.
Sometimes the pressure is normal as well because of either overproduction, like too much fluid production, or when the drainage is blocked. So there is increased pressure, and this causes damage to the optic nerve, and that causes permanent vision loss. I don't wish to frighten you by saying permanent vision loss, but just to emphasize the importance that we need to be very careful about glaucoma, because the vision loss that happens because of nerve damage, we cannot recover. So we need to work our way to prevent this kind of vision loss from happening. The other aspect about glaucoma is that the loss of sight that happens, it happens very, very slowly. And often it's just the peripheral, the side of your vision that you lose little by little by little. So often you don't realize how much you're losing until you have lost a fair bit of vision. So that is another reason why we have to be very wary that glaucoma may creep slowly upon us without us realizing it. And there is no specific cure as such permanently for glaucoma. It is just that we can prevent it from happening and control the process by treatment. So as I mentioned earlier, just to recap, this is the lens, and this is the portion where the fluid in front of the lens, that the fluid inside the eye is secreted, that then travels through here, through the drainage channels, and is drained into a meshwork. So this is what normally happens in a healthy eye. So in glaucoma, what happens is this fluid here, which is called aqueous humor, either this meshwork or the drainage channel is not working properly, it is blocked, or just too much of the fluid is produced, that it is not being drained effectively. So then what happens is there is increased pressure, as you can see. So it's like a balloon. When there's increased pressure, what happens is all this pressure goes and impacts on this nerve at the back of the eye. So almost 2 in 100 Australians do develop glaucoma in their whole lifetime. That is how many people get it. And 50% of them don't even realize that they have glaucoma. So if you have a direct relative who has glaucoma, then you have a 10 times more chance of developing glaucoma. So these are few points that we should always remember, that family history is very important. If you have heard some relative, especially a direct relative like your parents or your brothers or sisters or even children, somebody has glaucoma, then your risk goes up to 10 times. Sorry, just give me a minute. The presentation is a bit frozen here. Okay, so now coming to the types of glaucoma, there are different types. The most common one is called open angle glaucoma. So the angle of glaucoma, and the angle is the region where the fluid from the front of the eye goes through to the back of the eye. So when this fluid builds up, you get the increased pressure. Other types of glaucoma are angle closure, when the angle becomes very narrow and suddenly the pressure in the eye can go up. The other type is called congenital glaucoma, which is present from birth. So that is often there since you're born, and often as children, they develop signs and it is picked up early. The angle closure glaucoma also is something which happens very suddenly. So the one that really comes very slowly without us realizing is the open angle glaucoma. The last type is called secondary glaucoma, in which the eye already has some kind of disease or damage or injury which causes the pressure to go up. So this is just a bit of basis on the different types of glaucoma. Now, some people may not just be diagnosed with glaucoma. They may be classified as what is known as glaucoma suspect, which means that they may show some very early signs of glaucoma, but they may not have all the signs of glaucoma. So who are these people? They are people who are older in age and who have a family history of glaucoma. So if there is a family history of glaucoma, a very strong one, and if you're above a certain age, if you're older, then you are likely to be a glaucoma suspect. So all it means is that they have some appearances in their eye which makes them as a suspect to develop glaucoma later. So they do not need any treatment, but such people need to be kept under monitoring so that we can make sure that they do not develop glaucoma. Or if they do, then they receive treatment at the right age. I mean, at the right time, sir. So now, what are the risk factors for developing glaucoma? So it is estimated that almost over 300,000 Australians have glaucoma and they are unaware of it, assuming that they have healthy eyes. So this is the reason why glaucoma is known as the silent thief of sight, because it works its way very slowly, silently, without us realizing it. Anyone can develop glaucoma, but increasing age is one of the main risk factors for glaucoma. So by the age of 40, almost 1 in 200 have glaucoma. And once you are above the age of 80, almost 1 in 8 people have glaucoma. So aging is inevitable, but it's just that the glaucoma risk also goes up. What are the other risks? So, as I mentioned before, I'm repeating this again and again because it's very important that you should realize if you have a family history of glaucoma, it is worthwhile asking your aunts, uncles, or your distant relatives as well whether you have a family history or not. If you have an increased eye pressure, just like the blood pressure, an increased eye pressure is another risk factor. Age above 50 years, and if you have either Asian or African descent, which in Indians it's not as much, but Africans especially are at a very high risk of glaucoma. Diabetes, a condition which many Asians, many Indians do have, also contributes to glaucoma risk. Other risk factors, some eye risk factors are there, such as if you're very short-sighted, then you're more prone to have the open angle kind of glaucoma. If you're long-sighted, then you are at a higher risk of developing the angle closure glaucoma. And then if you have been on steroids, some people may have to take oral steroids, say if you're asthmatic or if you have any chronic inflammation, you may be put on steroids by your physician. So if it's for a very long time, you have the risk of getting glaucoma. People who experience a lot of migraines or some vascular problems, they also have a risk. Low blood pressure, obstructive sleep apnea, that's another condition in which the glaucoma risk goes up. Sometimes you may hear that the general practitioner or the respiratory, the chest physician has picked up obstructive sleep apnea. So that is one condition. The other one is, of course, if you have had an injury to the eye, if you've had, say, a blow to the eye, or even had a history of eye surgery, sometimes you may develop glaucoma. So now, how do you prevent this? Or how do you pick up that you have glaucoma? So there is a body called Glaucoma Australia. That is one of the resources for people with glaucoma. And they recommend that all Australians above 50 years have a comprehensive eye exam at least once in 2 years. So even if you do not have any known eye problem or otherwise, you are recommended to have an eye test at least once in 2 years. If you have a family history of glaucoma, then above 40 years, you're asked to have at least an exam every 2 years. So it gets younger, the age that you check your vision, if you have a family history, or if you are Asian or African descent. Now, if you know that one of your close relatives has had a very advanced glaucoma, you don't wait till you reach that age. Ask them at what age they develop the glaucoma. So try to get yourself tested at least 5 years or 10 years before they develop glaucoma so that you can pick it up at an earlier age. Is glaucoma hereditary? Well, yes. As I said before, you have 10 times risk higher than an average person if you have a family member with glaucoma. First degree relatives such as parents, siblings, children, they have at least a 1 in 4 chance of developing glaucoma. So you need to know your family history. So that's important. So what happens when you see either an optometrist or an ophthalmologist? What happens? So I want to tell you that none of the testing that's done for glaucoma is painful, or it will not cause much of discomfort at all. So don't be apprehensive about getting an eye exam. So your vision will be tested, then your eye pressure will be checked, and then the drainage angle that I told you about, that will be checked. We will put drops in and take a look at the back of your eye to check the optic nerve, and also measure the thickness of the front of your cornea. And main thing what I wish to let you know is there is no way for anybody, even blood pressure at least you can measure at home. But for a glaucoma check, it is not something you can do it yourself, like the blood sugar or the blood pressure. It is something for which you have to take yourself to an optometrist or an eye specialist. And it may be a bit time consuming, but your time will be very well worth it to have a very good check. What are the symptoms? How will you know that you have glaucoma? So, amongst the different types of glaucoma, again, primary open angle glaucoma is almost the most common type, which is almost 90% of the types. As I mentioned before, it is called the sneak thief of sight, or the silent thief of sight, because unfortunately you don't realize you have glaucoma. There are no obvious symptoms at all, and the damage happens very, very, very slowly. So if at all, what you may notice is what you notice at an advanced stage when you start missing the periphery of your vision little by little. So if I show you this picture here, this image is what a person with normal vision, with no glaucoma, will see. You can see everything around. Whereas as your glaucoma becomes advanced, you will start missing portions of the periphery. Initially, you won't pick it up, but once it becomes more and more advanced, you will see that you are missing all the side, all the side, little by little by little, it will start becoming more evident. This is, of course, only if it is not treated. So this is another image. This is one of the tests that we do when you come for your glaucoma check, which is called the field of vision test, in which, you're sitting in front of a machine, clicking buttons of what you're seeing. So a normal person, this is how they see. A normal person may also miss a small area of vision, which is called the normal blind spot. But with glaucoma, you start missing portions of your vision, all these black portions. This is how your vision will start, you'll slowly start missing. Later, as time goes by, it will become, so this is how we see it in the test, that you're missing all this portion of your vision. Oh, I'm sorry. So that means when you're looking at the same, beautiful flowers and sky, you're missing a portion. And as time goes by little, you lose pretty much your peripheral vision, leaving only a central island of vision. Again, not to frighten you, but just to let you know that if it's left untreated, this is what happens in most cases. This is how we see the nerve, which is most important for your vision. This is how a normal person's nerve appears. This is very early stage of glaucoma in which the damage has started. This is a bit more, and this is the final stage. So you can see that the nerve is very pink and normal looking here, but as the damage happens, it becomes more pale, and that is how you lose your peripheral vision. So symptoms again, at later stages, sometimes you may get a mild headache, you may get blind spots or tunnel vision, but early stages, no symptoms. Now, there is rarely what is called the angle closure glaucoma that I talked to you about earlier, in which that is usually a medical emergency in which suddenly there is an increase in pressure. So in that case, you might get severe pain in the eyes, a lot of watering, halos, and severe headache, in which you should go to the emergency for that. How is glaucoma treated? Again, treatment is very advanced these days, and it is very easily treatable. the only thing is that it is a lifelong treatment, just like blood pressure or diabetes or some of the other chronic disorders. Eye drops are the commonest modes of treatment. So you will be prescribed eye drops, and then you have to take it according to what you're prescribed. So it may be you should take it at the same time of the day, preferably every day, without missing any dose. Oral medications sometimes may be used, just for a brief period, usually just to get on top of the glaucoma control, but they are not usually a long-term option because they do have side effects as well. Now, apart from drops and very rarely tablets, laser treatment is also available. Laser treatment is also done as an outpatient treatment. So it is just, as in the picture shown, you will be given laser treatment in an outpatient setting. You come, get the treatment, and then go back. This is for people in whom, either it's not possible to use eye drops, or the eye drops have not had enough effect, or people are forgetting to use the eye drops often, and, to make life easier as well for the patient. So these are also very much used in treatment these days and are quite effective in management. There are some newer treatments I will briefly tell you about, one of them is called MIGS, which means that there are these small, if you can see the scale, this is your finger and such a small device. Glaucoma surgeons often use this device. It is a small, like a tube, which is inserted into the meshwork to help drainage, of the fluid. So these are some advancements that have come recently in eye surgery. And failing all treatment, in the sense drops or laser, then ultimately few patients may need surgery, which is just like the cataract surgery. It will be a day surgery, and you will have to undergo the surgery, which may take maybe half an hour to 1 hour, and followed by the usual post-operative course. But not many people need to undergo surgery. So what I wish all of you to remember about glaucoma is that if it is left untreated, it can cause irreversible vision loss. But early detection is very much possible. And once it is diagnosed, if you are strict with the treatment, if you put the drops, and if you attend all your appointments regularly, then you can be on top of it. You can just prevent any further progression and just keep it under control. So the sooner you get treatment, the better, so that you do not get any irreversible vision loss. So, and it is a progressive lifelong disorder. So your eye health is in your hands. By, getting all we need to do, including myself, is to get a comprehensive eye check at least once every 2 years, and more frequently if there is a family history or if you're diabetic. So that's all I need you to remember, that you need to be vigilant and careful and not, miss a diagnosis of glaucoma. So that was about glaucoma. Now we can move on to diabetes. So I think you might have had a talk earlier about diabetes. I'm not sure how much of it will be repetition today, but diabetes again is a very, very important, or rather a very serious kind of disorder, which can affect not only the eyes, but other organs as well, as we all know. And in our Indian community and globally as well, there is a very, much increased numbers these days of diabetes. So all of us need to be very careful, about diabetes and diabetic eye disease in particular. So just briefly about diabetes as such. There is type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Both of them, type 1 is because of complete insulin deficiency, type 2 is because of insulin resistance. So both of them make you prone to eye disorders. So the eye disorders in diabetes are quite variable. So sometimes it can be very simple as in very simple symptoms, such as just fluctuations in vision. So your vision may be good at some point of the day, and then it will worsen, and then it gets back again. So that may be one of the aspects, or it can range to serious complications such as diabetic retinopathy. So, why do you get fluctuating vision in diabetes? So, if you remember, I did show you that there is a clear structure called the lens. Just like the camera lens, we have a lens in our human eye. So, what happens with the blood sugar in diabetes is when the blood sugar goes up and down, if the diabetes is not in control, your lens is like this. It can swell up and shrink, swell and shrink. So when that happens, the way it focuses the light also varies, which is why sometimes you get good vision, sometimes poor vision. So that is one of the least complicated, problems of diabetes, because all we need to do for that is to get on top of our blood sugar. Once the blood sugar is under control, then the lens shape remains as it is. It doesn't swell or shrink. So that one is an easy fix. Not easy, but I'm saying you can. Main thing is the sugar control. Now, what are the other problems in diabetes? Cataract. Cataract, everyone develops a cataract at some stage in their lives. It is just part of the aging process. But diabetics are much more likely to develop cataract. So 2 to 5 times more chance of developing a cataract. Also, being a diabetic, you may develop cataract at an earlier age, much earlier than in the average person. Also, once you develop a cataract, it progresses quicker. So whereas a regular person, it may take them 1 or 2 years or a few years sometimes for the cataract to become significant. Whereas in diabetics, it can just within a year, sometimes it can progress based on their sugar level control. Glaucoma again. So we have just had a long chat on glaucoma. The incidence is higher in diabetics. So usually of the primary open angle glaucoma. But in diabetics, one other problem occurs. Sometimes, I will come to that later again. In diabetics, you can have one type of glaucoma, which is called the neovascular glaucoma, which is because of new vessels developing. So that can be a very severe type of glaucoma that diabetics can develop. Another less common problem is double vision. So there are muscles around the eye that make the eye move. Just like other structures in the body, how diabetes affects our health is by affecting the blood vessels. So when the blood vessels that supply these muscles, the nerves that move these muscles, when diabetes affects that, sometimes these muscles can get paralyzed and you can get double vision. So these are some of the main problems of diabetes. But the most important problem, or the most, the most serious problem arising out of diabetes is called diabetic retinopathy, in which diabetes affects the back of the eye, that is your retina. So today I'll be mainly focusing on the diabetic retinopathy and what are the symptoms of it and how you can prevent it and how you can treat diabetic retinopathy. So I showed you earlier there are blood vessels in the back of the eye that supply the retina. When these so in diabetes, what happens is it affects the lining. Blood vessels are like this. There is a lining, in the blood vessel. So when that lining gets damaged, then the walls of the blood vessels get damaged. They become leaky and they start leaking fluid and blood and fat tissue into the tissues. So that is how diabetes affects the retina. And the retina is what transmits all the nerve signals, all the vision signals rather, through the optic nerve to the brain. So once the retina is affected, invariably your vision is going to get affected. So in the early stages, the retinal blood vessels just swell and leak. And what happens is finally they sometimes just shut down. And what happens when there is a blockage like that? When there is a blockage like that, new vessels start growing out of, because of the blockage to supply blood. These new vessels are very weak. So what happens is they break down and they start causing further problems. So just to show you a picture, this is how a normal eye looks. This is the nerve at the back of the eye, these are all the blood vessels, the retinal blood vessels that supply the retina. And this portion, which is called the macula, that is the center of our vision, which is responsible for our sharp vision. So, what happens in a diabetic? If you have a look, all these blood vessels, if you see, these are all dilated. That means instead of being like, like this, like a tube, they become big, like a balloon, and they start leaking blood and fluid. So you can see that there are bleeding. There's bleeding here. There is hemorrhage, what we call it, bleeding, and then they start leaking. So there is leakage of all this fluid and fat into the retina. So sometimes when the blood vessel gets blocked, new vessels. So if you see normal retina, this is how it appears. Whereas here you can see all the small new vessels. These are all new vessels. And these are very weak. So they often rupture and they bleed and cause more problems. So again, this is a normal appearing eye. And this is what happens in advanced diabetic retinopathy, in which you start getting all these fat deposits and all the changes in the blood vessels. So when we look into your eye, this is how it appears in very advanced cases. You see all the bleeding. Again, not to frighten you, but just to make everyone realize that it can be a really serious problem. So, and this region is called the macula, which is the center of your vision. So when all these changes happen close to the center of your vision is when the vision loss occurs. So just like glaucoma, diabetes also is not uncommon at all. It is quite, it's picking up in numbers. Almost 1.7 million Australians have diabetes. So amongst these, a large number are unknown cases of diabetes as well. Of these, almost 25 to 30% develop some degree of diabetic retinopathy. And a portion of 1/5 of them almost progress to sight-threatening sight-threatening stages of retinopathy. This could be mostly because of neglecting the diabetic retinopathy or having very severe disease that is not coming under control. So diabetic retinopathy is the leading cause of preventable, I want to highlight this, it is preventable blindness in the working age people, not only in Australia, but worldwide as well. What are the symptoms? How do you realize that you have diabetic retinopathy? So early stages, again, you may not have any symptoms of diabetic retinopathy, but later as time goes by, you may get spots or floaters in your vision. So something may just float across, or you may see some blotches in your vision. I'll show you a picture as to how it may appear. And then you may have blurred vision. Everybody develops blurred vision due to cataract and other reasons, but generally, or you may need glasses just for reading or for the distance, but those will get improved with either glasses or contact lenses. When your vision cannot be corrected with either glasses or by the optometrist, that means something might be going wrong. You may get fluctuating vision, which means sometimes it's fine, sometimes the vision loss is there. And then the color vision, you may not see colors as crisp or as clear, as well defined as before. And then sometimes you may get sudden vision loss, which is quite rare, but that also can happen. Usually diabetic retinopathy affects both eyes, but sometimes it may be more in one eye and less in the other eye. So this is one example where in advanced cases, you may start seeing all blotches like this in vision. So when do you see a doctor? The most important thing is to carefully manage your diabetes. So if you have diabetes, make sure you see your GP, maybe somebody really good like Dr. Sundar or any other good GP, whoever is your regular GP. Make sure that your sugars are under control. That is one of the most important things. You need to see either an optometrist or an ophthalmologist at least once a year for an annual checkup, even if everything seems to be fine. You may not pick up some changes which may be happening in the periphery of your retina. So drops need to be put in, your pupil needs to be made big, and you will not be able to drive that day back from the appointment. But you need to make that effort to go at least once a year and get your checkup done. Pregnancy is one condition in which you may need more than once a year check, because sometimes, not sometimes, quite often actually in pregnancy, diabetes tends to get worse because of all the hormonal changes. So when diabetes gets worse, the diabetic retinopathy also has a chance of becoming worse. Or people who don't have retinopathy to start with may start getting retinopathy during pregnancy. So then you may need to have more frequent eye checks. So routinely, of course, you'll have your check. But apart from that, if you notice a big change in your vision, a sudden change, then you need to see your eye doctor straight away, or at least your GP or an optometrist, somebody who can diagnose and pick up what's happening. So prevention, we all know, is much better than a cure. You can't always prevent retinopathy from happening, but with good control of your blood sugars, regular eye checkup, and control of your blood pressure and cholesterol and other factors, and early intervention, you can definitely prevent severe vision loss from happening, and you can be on top of your condition and be on control. So diabetes doesn't always cause very severe vision loss. So if you play an active role, and along with your GP and your optometrist or ophthalmologist or dietitian, everybody together, if you take charge, you can definitely prevent diabetic retinopathy from happening to a certain extent. So what do you do to prevent it? Manage your diabetes. We are all guilty of not getting adequate exercise. So we should make sure that at least we get 150 minutes, which is at least on an average half an hour for 5 days a week of moderate exercise. You can just go for a walk around the park even, or, luckily we are here in Australia where we have a lot of open parks, or whatever possible in terms of exercise, or, like maintaining a healthy lifestyle. That should become a part of your routine. That is one thing. The other thing is to take your medications. Once you're diabetic, your oral tablets or your insulin, you need to take it as per the directions given. Monitor your sugar levels. So this is one thing, unlike glaucoma or the eye pressure check, this is one thing you can do at home. Monitor your sugar levels, especially more often if you're ill or if you're under stress. And also get regular blood tests through the lab. Like there is this test which is called, I'm sure your GP, or if you're diabetic, or you might have even heard of it, called glycosylated hemoglobin, which is test which tells you about, that is this test here, which tells you about your 3-monthly sugar control. So it is very good to know how good your sugar control is. So again, you don't have to laugh and be very happy going for a walk. You can even fight during a walk, but make sure you go for a walk. That's the most important thing. Just get yourself out of the house, or even if you can't, in the veranda or wherever you can, make sure you go for a good walk. Also keep your blood pressure and cholesterol, if you have them, under control. So exercise, healthy lifestyle will help you with all those. If you smoke or use tobacco in any other way, definitely quitting is helpful. Quitting will, any smoking definitely, worsens your diabetic retinopathy, and your chance of developing diabetic retinopathy is increased many-fold because of smoking. Because smoking also damages the lining of the blood vessels. So it worsens diabetic retinopathy. So those were all the lifestyle aspects. The other aspect is what I've said before. Pay attention to your vision. Any change, don't neglect it. Don't think that maybe tomorrow my vision will get better, maybe a day after. Contact your eye doctor or optometrist. Be regular with all your checks, whether it's to the GP, whether it's to your dietitian, whether it's to your optometrist or your ophthalmologist. Make sure you follow their advice, the medical advice. Don't leave anything for chance, or don't postpone appointments unless it's absolutely impossible to make the appointment. So now, how do you pick up diabetic retinopathy? 30 years ago, you had a 50% chance of going blind with diabetes. So, in the sense, you could develop severe diabetic retinopathy. But all that has changed manyfold with all the technology. So, today, with early detection, diagnosis, and management of diabetic retinopathy is very feasible, it's very possible. So, giving you a very high chance of saving sight. Never ignore the symptoms. All those symptoms that I mentioned, don't ignore them. And have a regular check and macular eye check by either your optometrist or your ophthalmologist. So how do you treat it? Say you develop diabetic retinopathy. What do you do? So if it's very mild, then nothing is to be done except for observation. So you need to have regular checks at least once a year, sometimes even once every 6 months, but the regular checking and good control of your sugars. So that's all that's needed. What happens if it becomes a bit worse? What happens if you get all those, the hemorrhages that I showed you, the lot of the new vessels come up, something like that? Then the treatment is usually done in two ways. One is using laser. So what does this laser do? Laser, again, as I mentioned for glaucoma, it is a day procedure. It is an office treatment where you visit your eye specialist, have the treatment, and then you go back home. Again, you won't be able to drive after the laser treatment, but the laser treatment is called pan-retinal photocoagulation, in which what happens is the laser is applied to the back of the eye, to the retina, and that helps treat the retinopathy. So laser, in simple ways, how it works is the laser takes off the need for oxygen by the retina. It takes off the need for new vessels to form. So then these new vessels, or if the new vessels have formed, they tend to close up and disappear. So just like this gentleman is sitting here, it is a day procedure. You sit, you visit your ophthalmologist and you get the treatment done. And you may have to have a few sessions of the treatment, but it is not something for which you need admission or like a prolonged treatment. Another new technique that's come up is called an anti-VEGF injection. Sometimes when there is the fluid that happens, that develops at the macula, at the center of your vision, then you may need to get an injection into the eye. I know it sounds frightening, but today it's become very common. You might have had it yourself, or you might have easily heard of people getting injections in their eye. So usually it is done as a day procedure, as in you just visit the ophthalmologist's office and get the injection. Sometimes for some patients, you may need to have a short stay in the hospital and then go home at the end of it and get the injection. So usually for this, you don't need lifelong treatment. It's a few injections till the fluid is settled, and then you will be monitored. So injectable treatment is one of the new options that is available apart from the laser. Sometimes, despite the best intentions and the best treatment, you may have new vessels that grow and grow and grow, and they may start bleeding. So once there's bleeding into the back of the eye, then you may need a surgery, just like the cataract surgery. It is no worse than that you may need to be admitted, have the surgery, all that blood in the back of the eye will be taken out, and some laser treatment may be applied. This is also usually a day surgery where you get admitted. You can remain in the hospital or go home and be seen the next day. So as you realize, diabetes and all the problems that diabetes causes in the eye, they are all treatable. So, most of the diabetics keep good vision, provided it is diagnosed early and all the steps are taken to keep it under control. The risk for developing diabetic retinopathy depends on the duration of the disease. So if you have the diabetes for 30 years or 40 years, your risk of developing retinopathy is much higher than somebody who has it for 5 years or 2 years. Again, sugar control, the glycemic control, that again determines. If your sugars are well under control, then you have a very low chance of developing diabetic retinopathy. If you have sugars are very high, then just the opposite. You have a very high chance of developing retinopathy. Both together is even worse. If you have diabetes for 30 years or 20 years and you have very poor sugar control, you can't do anything about the duration of retinopathy, but about the level of control, that is definitely in our hands to a certain extent. Definitely that we can, fight to keep it under control. So the most effective way to prevent yourself from retinopathy is to monitor your sugars, get the exercise, diet, see your GP, your endocrinologist, your diabetic educator, dietitian, keep it under control, see your optometrist or ophthalmologist, take as many, go for all the checkups that have been recommended so that you pick up any changes that are happening. And once you're diagnosed and once you've been recommended certain treatment, make sure that you listen to their advice, make sure that you follow the instructions. So that brings me to the end of my talk. I hope I haven't, in the sense, frightened any of you in terms of how serious glaucoma is or how serious diabetes is. My main message is that both these diseases, although the degree of vision loss they cause can be very significant, both the conditions can definitely be diagnosed early, can be managed very well. It is not like the older times when people say, will you go blind? No, you need not go blind at all. There is a lot of hope, but a lot of, like it has to come from within as well, the motivation to get your checkups done, to get your sugars under control, and to find a good, GP and optometrist and ophthalmologist, and to stick to the treatment. So I wish all of you good luck in looking after your eyes. And thank you for listening to, my talk. Thank you very much.
Dr. Deepa, I will thank you so much. There are some in the chat box, because we have a lot of our supporters who are watching on the Facebook. So
Yeah.
I'm going to read some questions from them.
Yeah.
From Monica Sharma.
Uh-huh.
So well explained. She's fantastic. Thanks for organizing talks like these. Absolutely necessary for public awareness. So thank you, Monica. And from Suman Mathur to everyone, great presentation. Deepa, thank you. Jyoti to everyone, very informative. From Kavta Mysore to everyone, excellent detailed explanation by Dr. Deepa Vishwanath. And let me see if there were any other messages from the chat. This is the from the chat one. So here we are. So it's open to, before I ask Dr. Valanju to say thank you, I'm going to ask everyone if, is there any question, please? I'm just going to put the gallery view.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yes,
please.
Thank you, Dr. Deepa, for the very informative session. Very, very informative. My question is, can a person get cataract as well as glaucoma same time or even at different stages?
No, definitely. Both the conditions can occur. In fact, we see a lot of patients having both conditions. They may, like cataract can happen before glaucoma or the other way around as well. So they're quite related in a way as well, in the sense, when you have cataract also, if you go back, I'll show you the picture of the anatomy. So if you take a look, sorry, I'm just going back all the way to the anatomy just to explain. So if you look here, this is your lens. This is what becomes opaque and you develop the cataract. What happens sometimes also is that with the cataract, when the lens swells, the fluid in front of the eye, this is the area, the angle through which it drains. So when this lens sometimes becomes cataractous and hard and it swells, it can create a blockage as well. in the fluid drainage. So when cataract gets advanced, in some cases, you can have the pressure go up because of the cataract. That is one thing. The other aspect is they can just exist side by side. Glaucoma can develop, and person with glaucoma tends to develop cataract by way of aging as well. So definitely there are. So in terms of the management or the treatment as well, and I did show you before, there are now advancements in treating cataract for patients with glaucoma. So when you have glaucoma, when you are on drops, and then you develop a cataract, when you have the cataract surgery, there are these implants, the mixed surgery that I showed you, which can also be implanted at the same time as the cataract surgery, and that will help treating glaucoma as well. So, they are very much interrelated, the conditions. I mean, they can happen together, definitely.
Say if the cataract is removed or others treated, will that person get glaucoma at a later stage, or that chance still remains the same or reduces the level of the possibility?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question that you asked actually. So cataract, see, what happens is, even normally, a regular normal person undergoes cataract surgery, and then we put in the artificial lens. The whole lens and everything moves back a little bit. So what happens? Slightly. So even an average person gets almost a 5 to 10% reduction in the eye pressure after cataract surgery. So sometimes if you have very, very mild glaucoma, or if you're just a suspect, often after cataract surgery, you may not need drops. Sometimes. That is only if it's very mild, because cataract, the surgery reduces the eye drop, reduces the eye pressure. Or instead of using 2 drops, you may just need, that sort of thing. So, but again, even if you have had the cataract surgery, you can develop glaucoma later. The primary open angle glaucoma can happen later. It doesn't sort of prevent you from developing glaucoma, but it definitely it reduces the eye pressure by a bit. So it gives you that amount of leverage. It protects you a little bit, having had the cataract surgery.
Are there any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
No problem.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes,
Hello.
sure.
Can I ask you a question? Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
I can.
I am Subramania speaking from Tugabi. I
Yeah.
just want to know the unit in which the eye pressure is measured.
It is in mercury. Actually, it's interesting. It's millimeters of mercury is what we put it as. So the normal range is around 11 to 12. 11 to 20, sorry. That's the average range. But again, it is depending upon, if I show you this diagram again, this is the front window of the eye, which is the cornea I told you. So we also, sometimes in people with thicker corneas, their eye pressures may also measure a bit higher. So we may make some adjustments for the corneal thickness. So not everybody strictly that the eye pressure of 20 has to be the cutoff. It's a bit of a range, but yeah, we measure it. We measure it using different methods as well. Sometimes in the optometrist, it may be just using air puff of air. But when you come to the eye clinic, usually either an orthoptist or an ophthalmologist, we use another technique on the slit lamp, which is a bit more accurate.
But Jyoti had a hand there. Jyoti.
Yes. Hello. Good evening, madam.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, I've got glaucoma in both of my eyes,
Yes.
along with the retina degeneration.
Macular degeneration, yeah.
Along with the diabetes.
Okay.
So I wanted to know why there is pain in my right eye all the time in the morning, when I get up in the morning.
In the morning. Okay.
Yes.
So are you using any eye drops for glaucoma?
Yes, please. Yes, I'm using 3 type of medicines: Azob, Alphagen, and Genfort, along with Refresh.
You are using Refresh. I was about to say, so see, often the discomfort, like I said, glaucoma by itself very, very rarely causes eye discomfort unless the pressure goes into the 30s and 40s, a very high range, and you develop pain.
Oh,
Other than that, but
sorry?
No,
My
definitely.
pressure is 15 and 14 in both the
That's good.
eyes.
I would assume that's a good pressure. So the pain, I would think most likely is because often all the eye drops, they contain preservatives. All the eye drops, if they are the bottled ones,
Mhm.
all these preservatives, they do cause changes. And unfortunately, you have to use the drops every day. It's not like you can skip drops. These preservatives are not, they are needed, just like the preservatives in our food to maintain the, freshness or to keep the drop safe for you to use. But they do cause changes to the front window, the cornea of your eye.
Okay.
Are there
So,
any other questions?
So what is
I
the
have a question.
no,
So I'm sure
I
the
don't.
refresh tears. Sorry.
Yes, hello.
Yeah,
Yes,
hello.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Sure.
sorry, I'll just finish
Is that
off
all?
answering, the eye drop. So if you use refresh tears, that is good, or you can use, the preservative-free glaucoma drops. Maybe you could talk to whoever is treating you, and you could get preservative. There are preservative-free eye drops that are available
Mhm.
for this, or you can use the refresh tears. Just make sure that you don't put refresh tears within 10 minutes of putting your glaucoma drops, because that will wash off your glaucoma drops. So if
Okay.
you use, there are lubricant gels as well, some of them which are, which will lubricate your eye and give you a lot of comfort.
Mhm.
So I would think that is the most common cause. And when you wake up, usually in the morning, your eyes are a bit dry. So it'll be good to use some gel at night before you go to sleep. I would think that
Okay.
would help.
Thank you very much.
No problems.
yeah?
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions or
So what
Yes,
is
I
the
have a question. Sorry.
I can't, somebody's got video off, but please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's me with Monica. Can I ask you a question, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Deepa, for a very nice talk. Could I please ask you if macular degeneration is genetic?
Macular degeneration, there is a certain level of genetics. It's not as, like glaucoma. It is not as well established, but there is definitely a genetic element involved. So again, family history in most of the eye conditions, very, very, very important to know your family history of eye conditions. Definitely
I
you should, in glaucoma as well, and couple of inherited problems are there. So family history plays a, you should definitely take your eye checkup more seriously if you have a family history of an eye condition.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
hello? I just want to ask you a question.
Yes.
What is the optimum pressure range for a healthy eye?
So that again, as I said, it depends. It depends on each one's corneal thickness, the nerve, and the normal range is 11 to 20 is what the textbooks say. But we have seen so many patients, often sometimes when you measure it's 8, 10. So glaucoma again doesn't mean that you need to have very high pressures. It is that range of pressures which keeps your nerve healthy. So there is a subset of glaucoma. I didn't put that in the talk, but there is also, you might hear something called normal tension glaucoma, which means your eye pressure may be only 10 or 11, but you may have nerve damage. So there is no specific, a ballpark figure according to the textbooks and otherwise is 11 to 20, just to answer the question. But it, whatever pressure keeps your nerve healthy is a good healthy eye pressure. For somebody it may be 16, for somebody it may be 11, that sort of thing. But anything within this range should be pretty safe. If you hear 11 to 20, it should be a pretty safe, good normal pressure, or even 10 to 20, I would think.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, please.
Does the watching of too much TV or using the lot of iPad affects the eye? I mean,
Yes and no. And no, not no, yes, for sure it affects in a certain way. So basically, see, it is not that it's we do, all of us are guilty, especially nowadays, of watching a lot of the near device, iPad, iPhone, myself included. So what it does is basically, you tend to, even now looking at this screen, you tend to go on staring. You don't blink much, So what happens is normally, that's why we advise even all software professionals, anybody who's engaged in a lot of, even for work, staring into a computer. What happens is when you forget to blink, your tear film, that there's a layer of tears that is in front of your cornea that doesn't move at all. So you get more dry spots in the front of your eye. And often with time, just like you mentioned, you get pain in your eyes. With time, initially you may just feel that there is some sand in your eye or some discomfort, but with time, you'll feel like blinking your eyes more often. You'll get that gritty sensation. So definitely, yes. If you're watching a lot of TV or you're watching a lot of near device, what I would say is every 10 minutes or so, at least look away, look at a distance, blink a few times, and try to avoid prolonged hours of continuously watching. If you watch, the TV is not that bad because it's at a distance at least, and you'll at least look here and there a bit. But the devices, the iPad and the iPhone, you tend to get glued to them, or the computer as well for work. So as long as you blink your eyes, and then it should be all right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask Dr. Valanju, can you please say the vote of thanks, please, Pruful?
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vishwanathan, for a very, very beautiful and very practical session on glaucoma as well as the diabetes. Diabetes is a very, very important comorbidity in a lot of diseases, but especially in the eyes. It is preventable, the diabetic retinopathy, as you said, and that's a very, very important message that we got from your talk today. Apart from that, all the subjects that you tackled here, we were very, very happy, and we have benefited a lot. So thank you very much again for giving us a very good idea about how to protect our most important.
1 minute, finish the meeting now.
Okay, so I'll hand it over to Bijidaji now.
Thank you.
Deepa, we really appreciate it. And I think, especially looking after diabetes, I think after the next week, Diwali celebration,
Yes.
we might cut down on the sweets.
I
So one more.
to what you said. We just finished our stash of Diwali sweets at home.
Diwali, so definitely, but it was wonderful. We appreciate it. And with the help of all of you as a community coming along, that's how we can give our seniors the quality time, well-informed community, and healthy, active, happy seniors. So please come along to Wentworthville, but please book it. Otherwise, we have the, restrictions. We can have up to 50 numbers according to that community. So we really
Come along,
appreciate
Dr. Deepaji.
Yeah.
You know,